How much can one ride change a life more than you think? A single mom at the wheel, a CEO in the back. He falls asleep. She faces a choice: wake him or cover him with her jacket. One quiet kindness. Then the flash of a camera, a headline, a sick child, a locked heart that starts to open. Is she being used or seen? Is he escaping or finally arriving? When mercy looks like motive, who do you trust? This is the moment their worlds collide and nothing stays the same. Stay with me. The story begins now. The rain had been falling since dusk. Thin streams slid down the windshield like silver veins, breaking into beads each time the wipers swept across. The streets of Riverton shimmered with reflections, headlights bending on the wet pavement. Inside a 10-year-old sedan, Maya Ellis tightened her grip on the steering wheel. Her hands ached from 12 hours of driving. The night shift was nearly done, but the bills waiting at home were not. Rent was still short by $380. The fridge carried only a half carton of milk and 2 eggs. Her 6-year-old son Theo would wake in a few hours asking for cereal, and she refused to let him see empty shelves. She checked the rideshare app. One more trip, she thought. Just one more ride before she could rest. The screen pinged. Priority pickup. Orchid Crown Hotel. Riverton's most expensive address. Maya exhaled slowly. Her body begged her to decline. But priority meant higher fares and maybe a generous tip. She tapped accept and turned the car toward downtown. The tires hissed on flooded asphalt. She whispered to herself, "Hold on. Theo, Mama's almost there." The Orchid Crown rose out of the rain like a glass palace. Golden light spilled from its arching canopy. Valets in pressed uniforms dashed between black SUVs with umbrellas. Women in silk gowns laughed as they hurried inside. Men in tuxedos smoked under the covered entrance. The scent of cologne and wet pavement mixed in the air. Maya pulled into the designated lane, her sedan dull beside polished limousines. She glanced at the name on the screen. Adrian H. Her eyes searched the crowd. Then she saw him. A tall man, bow tie loose, jacket damp, standing slightly apart from the others. He held a half-empty glass like it was an anchor. His dark hair was plastered to his forehead. For a moment, he didn't move, staring at the pavement as if it had betrayed him. Maya rolled down her window. "Are you Adrian?" she called, voice raised over the rain. His head turned slowly, eyes rimmed red but steady. Without a word, he stepped into the back seat. Water dripped from his cuff onto the floor mat. He closed the door, exhaling. "Just take me home." The app already loaded the destination, High Ridge Bluffs. Maya swallowed. She had never driven up there, where the road curled into the hills, where mansions glittered behind iron gates. The car eased into the night. Downtown lights blurred into streaks of white and red. Inside, silence pressed against the glass. A few minutes passed before his voice broke through. "Do you ever feel like everyone's pretending?" His tone was flat. Not asking for advice, just testing if anyone listened. Maya kept her eyes on the road. "More than you think?" She didn't glance back, but she felt his stare in the rearview mirror. "I drive strangers every night," she added. "Most don't even look at me, but I show up. My boy needs the lights on." Her voice was calm, not bitter, just honest. He shifted slightly, letting her words hang. "What's his name, Theo?" 6. That's a good age. His lips curved into something between a smile and a memory. "Kids still believe in good things." Maya softened. "I'm trying to protect that for as long as I can." She let the wipers thump to fill the silence. He leaned against the window, rain sliding across the glass. "Must be nice, being needed for who you are." words were almost swallowed by the engine's hum. She studied him briefly in the mirror. Suit tailored, shoes Italian, but something hollow underneath. He looked like a man drowning in applause no one meant. She didn't know he was Adrian Hale, CEO of Northline Labs, the fastest-growing tech firm in the country. To her, he was just another passenger, tired and half-drunk, searching for peace. And that was enough. The streets narrowed as they climbed toward the hills. Pine trees blurred into shadows on either side. Each bend revealed houses larger than anything Maya had ever stepped into. The rain eased into a mist, soft against the windshield. Finally, the gates appeared steel and stone, taller than the car itself. The mansion beyond glowed faintly, walls of glass reflecting the storm. Maya slowed to a stop. She turned in her seat. Her passenger had fallen asleep. His head rested against the window. One arm hung loosely across his lap. Breathing steady, face no longer sharp, but almost boyish. Maya hesitated. Should she wake him? She reached instead for the faded denim jacket she kept behind the seat. It was frayed at the cuffs, stained with old coffee, but it was warm. She leaned back and placed it gently across his chest. Then she stepped into the rain. Cold drops stung her cheeks as she walked to the intercom. She pressed the button. A voice crackled, clipped and formal. Yes, I brought Mr. Hale home. He's asleep in the car. Silence for a second. Then right away. Moments later, a man in uniform hurried down the drive with an umbrella. He nodded as Maya opened the door. He's fine, she said. Just tired. The man carefully lifted Adrian, guiding him toward the house. The umbrella bobbed, shielding them from the rain. Within seconds, they disappeared into the warm light of the entryway. The gates closed, sealing silence behind them. Maya returned to her seat, rain dripping from her hair. She started the engine. The wipers swept, steady, like a heartbeat. She didn't ask who he was. She didn't care what empire he owned. To her, he was just a man who needed a ride home. The sedan rolled back down the hill. The city lights spread like scattered jewels below. Maya whispered again. Almost done. Theo, in the mansion above. Adrian stirred faintly as he was laid on a couch. The denim jacket slipped from his chest, folding at his side. He never opened his eyes. The storm moved east. By morning, only damp silence lingered in the hills. But inside Adrian's glass bedroom, something new waited. On the bench by the door lay that same jacket, folded neatly. Beside it, a small note in neat handwriting. Brought you home safe. No extra charge. Sleep well. M.E. When Adrian Hale woke, his head heavy, his mouth dry, the first thing he saw was the note. He read it once, then again. A strange quiet filled him, different from the silence he usually carried. Most people who caught him vulnerable wanted something in return, money, favors, access. But this woman had left only kindness and a whisper of her name. Adrian turned the note over, as if more words might appear. Nothing, just the simple scrawl. It unsettled him more than the hangover. Later that morning, he would call his assistant. He would ask, casually, where a woman named Maya Ellis might work during the day. Not to pry, he told himself, just curiosity. But the truth pressed deeper. A stranger had left him no demand, no price, no judgment. And in his world of glass towers and hollow praise, that felt almost impossible. The next morning, Riverton carried the smell of rain-soaked concrete. Adrian Hale sat in his office, floor-to-ceiling windows catching gray light. The denim jacket lay folded on the desk, the note resting on top. His assistant, Daniel, stood waiting with the day's agenda. Adrian barely listened. His eyes kept drifting back to the note. "Find out where she works," Adrian said finally. Daniel frowned. "Who the driver?" "Maya Ellis." Daniel hesitated. Why Adrian straightened his tie, masking the question with indifference. "Because I owe her my jacket." By noon, Adrian and Daniel stood outside Maple and Fifth Diner. It smelled of bacon grease and coffee grounds. The neon sign buzzed weakly above the door. Inside, Maya balanced a tray of steaming mugs. Her hair was tucked under a brown visor, her apron stained from the morning rush. She moved with speed, but exhaustion clung to her shoulders. Then she turned. Her steps faltered. There he was, suit pressed. Rain now only a memory. Standing at the counter, Daniel stepped aside, pretending to study the pie display. Adrian approached slowly, jacket folded in his hands. "Hi. I believe this belongs to you." Maya blinked. Her lips curved in the faintest smile. "I figured you'd want it back." He set the jacket down carefully. "I also wanted to thank you. For the note." He hesitated, voice softer. "For the kindness." Maya shrugged. "I don't usually leave notes. You just looked like someone who needed one." Her tone was casual, but her eyes didn't waver. Adrian leaned against the counter, less like a CEO and more like a man searching for an answer. "Would you let me buy you lunch? A proper thank you?" The words were light, but something steadier ran beneath them. Maya shook her head gently. "Thanks, but I can't." Her glance flicked to the clock on the wall. "I need to finish my shift, get across town, and pick up my son by 1:20. There's no room in that schedule for lunch." She wasn't apologizing. She was explaining. Adrian tilted his head, a faint smile tugging at him. "You'd turn down lunch with me? Just for a 6-year-old school pickup?" "Yes," she said firmly. "I'd turn down lunch with the president if it meant being late for Theo." The sound that left Adrian's chest surprised even him. It was laughter, real, unpolished, the kind he hadn't felt in years. Maya's brow lifted in quiet amusement. "Rare," he said softly. "Most people would pretend to consider it." "I don't have the luxury of pretending," she answered. "Not when it comes to him." Something shifted in his expression then. The diner noise seemed to fade, leaving only the hum of the coffee machine. For a brief moment, they saw each other without masks. Adrian nodded once. "I'll bring the jacket back another time," he said. He turned and walked out, Daniel trailing behind. Maya stood frozen, tray still balanced in her hands. The doorbell jingled as he left, and even after silence returned, she felt something had entered her life uninvited. 2 nights later, the rideshare app buzzed again. Maya's screen lit up with a familiar name, Adrian H. She considered canceling, but the fare was good. She tapped accept. He climbed in quietly. Suit impeccable this time. "Downtown," he said simply. No glass in his hand tonight, only a briefcase. The city slid past in streaks of neon. Maya focused on the road. Adrian studied her reflection in the mirror. "Do you always drive nights?" he asked. "Mostly. Pays better," she replied. "And days." "Diner on 5th, she said flatly. Her shoulders stiffened, but her voice was even. "That's a lot," he murmured. Maya allowed a small shrug. "You get used to it? Rent doesn't care if you're tired." Her knuckles whitened against the wheel. Silence fell again. But this time it felt different. Not uncomfortable. More like a space where truths were safe to breathe. Ride after ride followed in the next weeks. Sometimes across town, sometimes just around the block. He never explained why he requested her specifically. She never asked. But in those quiet rides, something unspoken began to form. One rainy evening, Maya finally shared more. Her voice was steady, but the words carried weight. Theo's dad left when I was 7 months pregnant. Adrian turned his head, surprised. You were still working then, I had to. Bills don't pause for heartbreak. He looked down, his throat tight. What about your family? My mom passed when I was 17. Never knew my dad. An aunt in Michigan, but we don't talk. Her words carried no self-pity, only fact. It's just me and Theo now. She gave a small, tired smile. We manage. Adrian didn't respond right away. He simply listened, really listened. Something in him recognized the quiet courage in her tone. Later, she asked with a half smile. So what about you, Mr. Perfect Suit? He chuckled. Big house, chef, helicopter. But you know what I don't have. Her eyes flicked up in the mirror. What people I trust? Her smile faded. That's worse than not having a chef. He exhaled, jaw tightening. My best friend tried to sell out the company behind my back. 6 years gone in a handshake. He stared out the window. My parents call only when they need a photo for charity, not to ask how I'm doing. Maya didn't reply, but the small nod she gave spoke louder than words. It said, I hear you. Sometimes, Adrian added quietly. I feel like I built a glass tower I can't escape. Everyone sees me, but no one really gets in. Maya's whisper barely carried over the hum of the tires. That's the loneliest kind of home. They drove in silence the rest of the way. But something had shifted. 2 worlds had cracked open just enough to touch. Wednesday came heavy with clouds. Maya's phone buzzed while she waited outside a downtown tower. Her hands trembled as she answered. Her face paled. She shoved the phone back into her pocket. Adrian opened the door, briefcase in hand. You okay? He asked. No. Her voice shook. Theo has a fever. The daycare called. I was supposed to take another ride. But I need to go. Go? Adrian said instantly. I'll come with you. She hesitated, caught off guard. But something in his tone left no space for refusal. She nodded once. They sped across the city, rain streaking again against the windshield. For the first time, Maya wasn't behind the wheel. Adrian drove, steady hands gripping as if Theo's safety depended on it. The car turned sharply into a narrow street. A brick building appeared, sign faded but clear, Bright Sprout Daycare. Maya ran inside. Adrian waited, pulse pounding. Then she returned. Theo limp against her chest, cheeks flushed with fever. Without hesitation, Adrian opened the passenger door. Let me drive, he said firmly. Maya blinked. What? You shouldn't. Just tell me where the hospital is. She hesitated, then relented. She buckled Theo carefully into the back seat. Adrian slid behind the wheel. St. Bridget's Children's Hospital, she whispered. He nodded once, determination hardening his features. The engine roared. They tore through the wet streets, sirens echoing somewhere in the distance. Theo whimpered softly, head resting on his mother's shoulder. Maya stroked his hair, her own breath unsteady. Adrian kept his eyes on the road, jaw set. For once, there was no boardroom, no glass tower, no audience, only a child's fever and a mother's fear. The emergency room buzzed with chaos. Phones rang. Nurses hurried past with clipboards. Adrian sat in the waiting area, denim jacket folded neatly in his lap. Hours dragged. The vending machine hummed beside him. He didn't move, at last. Double doors swung open. Maya stepped out. Theo in her arms, fast asleep but safe. Her eyes found Adrian still waiting. You stayed, she whispered. He rose instantly. Of course I did. Her throat tightened. No one's ever done that before. His smile was small, but certain. Now someone has. The moment should have been private. But a shutter clicked from across the street. A camera caught them, Maya holding Theo, Adrian's hand resting gently on her back. By sunrise, the photo had spread across Riverton's gossip sites. Tech Titan's secret family speculation swirled like wildfire. Maya saw the headline during her lunch break at Maple and Fifth. Her stomach dropped as she read the comments. Gold digger, nanny, opportunist. Her boss glanced at her, lips tight. We don't need trouble here, he muttered. By the end of the week, her hours were cut. Later that evening, her phone buzzed. A message from Adrian. Can we talk? They met at a quiet cafe tucked inside a bookstore. The place smelled of paper and roasted beans. Adrian sat in the corner, cap pulled low. But his presence filled the room. I'm sorry, he said before she even sat. I didn't mean for this to happen. Maya crossed her arms, wary. You didn't take the photo, she admitted. But you should have known someone would. Her voice was calm, but her jaw was tight. I want to fix this, Adrian said. That's why I'd like to make you an offer. Her brow lifted. What kind of offer? He leaned forward. Become my personal driver. Officially, for 3 months. I'll handle the media. You'll be safe. And the pay will be more than fair. How much more, she asked cautiously. 5 times what you make now, he said without flinching. You could leave the diner, set your own hours, be with Theo. Maya exhaled sharply. That feels like charity. It's not, he countered. I trust you behind the wheel. Adrian continued. You don't fake anything. With you, I don't have to pretend either. His eyes locked on hers, unwavering. Maya's throat tightened. She wanted to say yes, but fear gnawed at her. Feels like too much, she whispered. Adrian softened his voice. When's the last time someone asked what you want? Maya. The question stilled her. Not what Theo needs, not what her job demands. She searched her memory. Her answer was barely a breath. I don't remember. Then maybe that's the problem, Adrian said gently. You've been surviving so long. You forgot you're allowed to want. Her eyes blurred with unshed tears. She blinked hard, forcing composure. You make it hard to say no. I'm okay with hard, he replied softly. As long as it's real. Maya said nothing more that night. But 2 days later, after long walks with Theo and sleepless hours staring at the cracked ceiling of her apartment, she gave him her answer. Yes, the first Monday. She arrived at Northline Lab's underground garage. Her outfit was plain black slacks, button-down shirt. Adrian greeted her with only a nod. No speeches, no show, just quiet understanding. For weeks, Maya became part of his world. She drove him to meetings, waited outside boardrooms lined with glass. At first, no one looked at her. Then they began to notice. The woman who anticipated his schedule before his assistant asked. She handed him files at the right moment. Adjusted his calendar without being told. Her presence was steady, professional, but never invisible. Adrian noticed too. Her sharp observation surprised him. One day, leaving a pitch, he asked, How did you know that investor was bluffing? Maya shrugged. He looked at his phone every time someone mentioned manufacturing costs, like he didn't want to commit. Adrian smiled. You pay attention? I have to, she said simply. Missing details costs me paychecks. He laughed quietly. But inside, it struck him no one had watched his back like this in years. She had no agenda, only honesty. Their rhythm grew natural. Car rides turned into spaces where silence felt safe. Meetings felt less hollow with her waiting outside. But comfort can make people careless. One Thursday morning, they arrived at a luxury hotel for a high-stakes partnership meeting. Executives crowded the hall, voices low and confident. Maya stood just outside the door, organizing folders. She heard laughter from inside. Not cruel, just careless. "So, Adrian," one man chuckled, "is that blonde driver your latest innovation?" Another voice joined, louder. "Mixing business with pleasure now." The laughter stung. Maya froze in the hallway. Folders clutched tight. Her chest burned. But she stayed silent. She didn't confront Adrian afterward. She didn't wait for him to defend her. She simply drove him back to North Line Tower. Face unreadable. That night, she didn't arrive at her usual time. Her phone stayed dark. By morning, Adrian's calls went unanswered. On the second day, he called the rideshare platform. His suspicion was confirmed. Maya had resigned. No goodbye, no explanation, just gone. At first, he felt confused. Then frustration boiled into anger at himself. He replayed every moment, searching for what he missed. When Daniel mentioned the offhand jokes from the meeting, Adrian's stomach sank. He knew instantly. That was it. She thought she was just another passing interest, a curiosity, someone to laugh about over cocktails. But she was wrong. She mattered more than anyone he had known in years. And now she was gone. Adrian sat alone in his car, the city humming outside. For once, money, influence, power, none of it mattered. Because the one person who never wanted anything from him was the only one he couldn't convince to stay. The sky over Riverton hung heavy with clouds. Adrian had never driven through this part of town before. Cracked sidewalks, rusted mailboxes, faded numbers on doors. He parked outside South River Apartments. Concrete walls streaked with rain. A lone streetlight flickered above the entrance. He knocked twice. The door creaked open a few inches. Maya leaned against the frame, arms folded. Her voice was cool. "What are you doing here? I needed to see you," Adrian said. "You left without saying anything." Maya's eyes were steady. "What would you have wanted me to say?" "I'm sorry about the meeting," he began. "About what they said?" She shook her head. "I didn't leave because of what they said." Her voice dropped, raw but calm. "I left because of what you didn't." Adrian's jaw clenched. "I didn't hear it in time. If I had, I didn't need you to defend me." She cut in. "I just needed to know I mattered to you, outside of your schedule." Her words were sharper than the rain. Silence fell between them. Maya's eyes glistened, but held no tears. "I've spent too long being someone's afterthought, someone's pity project." She exhaled. "I fought hard to stand on my own. I don't need rescuing." Her voice was steady, final. Adrian nodded slowly. "I didn't come to rescue you." He swallowed. "I came because I miss you. Because I need you." Her hand tightened on the door. "Goodbye, Adrian." She closed it gently, the latch clicking. Adrian stood in the hallway, rain dripping from his collar. For the first time in years, he had no words left. He walked away, the echo of her voice following him down the stairs. 2 days later, a plain white envelope appeared under Maya's door. She found it while sweeping the hallway. The paper was damp at the edges from rain. She carried it inside, setting it on the counter. She didn't open it right away. Instead, she made breakfast for Theo. Milk poured into a chipped bowl. Slices of banana on top of cereal. Theo chewed happily. Crayons scattered beside his placemat. The letter sat untouched. Maya washed dishes, folded a stray towel, fed the cat. Her eyes kept drifting back to the envelope. When Theo finally curled up for his nap, Maya sat on the couch. The apartment was quiet except for the hum of the fridge. She opened the envelope with careful fingers. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Adrian's handwriting slanted, rough in places. She began to read. Maya, I don't know if you'll read this. Maybe you'll throw it away. But there are things I need to say. I used to dream of a life where I mattered. Not for what I built, but for who I was. A family, not for cameras, but for the quiet moments. A wife who saw me, a child who looked at me like I was something good. I thought those dreams were foolish. Until you. When you drove me home that night, you didn't see a CEO. You saw a tired man who needed a ride. Since then, nothing has felt the same. I don't want to fix you. I don't want to change you. I just want the chance to know you again. I miss your honesty. I miss Theo's laugh. I miss you. If you can forgive me, I'd like a second chance. Not to prove anything, just to be someone worthy of sitting across from you again. Adrian. Maya folded the letter slowly. Her throat burned. She set it back on the counter, unable to look at it anymore. An hour later, Theo padded into the kitchen in his pajamas. His hair was messy from sleep. He pointed at the folded paper. Did you write that? He asked. Maya shook her head. Adrian did. Theo stared at it for a long moment. Then, with the quiet wisdom only a child carries, he said, why don't you give him a chance like you do when I mess up? Maya blinked. What do you mean? You always say people deserve another chance if they mean it. Her chest tightened. She pulled him close, kissing his hair. She didn't answer, but his words lingered long after he'd gone back to play. That night, after Theo was asleep, Maya sat on the couch again. She picked up her phone. Her message was short. Let's talk soon. They met at Larkspur & Co., booksellers, a small shop tucked on a quiet street. The air smelled of old paper and cinnamon. Rain tapped softly on the windows. Adrian was already there, sitting in the back with 2 cups of tea. He looked up when she entered. No cap this time. No disguise, just weary eyes. She sat across from him. Neither spoke at first. The shop's only sound was the rustle of pages from another table. I got your letter, Maya said finally. Adrian nodded, his hands clasped tightly. I meant every word. Her gaze didn't waver. We're not going back to what it was. I don't want back, he said quickly. I want forward. Maya studied him. Slow. No pressure. No pretending. Adrian's chest eased with relief. Slow, he agreed, but real. His voice was steady, his eyes unflinching. For the first time in weeks, Maya felt her walls lower just a little. They sat in silence, sipping tea, letting the moment breathe. And for once, silence didn't feel like absence. It felt like possibility. The days that followed weren't labeled. No promises carved in stone, just moments, small and steady. Adrian showed up with coffee one morning. Not expensive lattes, just 2 paper cups from the corner shop. He handed one to Maya without a word. On Sunday, they walked with Theo to Willow Park. Theo chased squirrels across the damp grass. Adrian trailed behind, carrying juice boxes. Maya watched from the bench. For the first time, she let herself imagine what it might look like. Not wealth, not charity, just family. Still, doubt lingered at the edges. Could she trust this? Could he? But as they left the bookstore that first evening, Adrian said something that stayed with her. I don't need you to fit into my world. He glanced at her, rain streaking down his cheek. I need to build one with you. Maya didn't answer right away, but she carried those words home like a lantern against the dark. And for the first time in years, hope felt possible. Mornings changed quietly. Adrian began arriving at Maya's apartment with 2 coffees in hand. Not fancy brews, just paper cups from a corner shop. Steam curling into the cool air. He never knocked loudly. A soft tap on the door. Theo was usually the first to answer, grinning wide. Some evenings, Adrian stayed for dinner. Maya would cook pasta or stir-fry. Simple meals stretched thin. He'd clear plates without being asked. Sleeves rolled up, water dripping from his hands. Other nights, they didn't speak much. Just sat at the kitchen table while Theo built rocket ships out of blocks. Silence no longer meant distance, it meant peace. On Sundays, they walked to Willow Park. Theo chased squirrels, his laughter echoing across the grass. Adrian carried juice boxes and let himself laugh too. Maya sat on the bench, book in her lap. Sometimes she read a page. Mostly she just watched them together. A picture she'd never imagined. When Adrian's birthday arrived, Maya asked him what he wanted. He shook his head. Nothing. Birthdays were always boardroom lunches or staged photos. People showed up because they had to. She didn't argue. But when he stepped into her apartment that evening, he froze. Paper streamers stretched across the ceiling, taped unevenly. A small chocolate cake sat on the table, lopsided with one crooked candle. Theo wore a paper crown, his grin brighter than the candle flame. Maya stood by the sink, drying her hands on a towel. Adrian's throat tightened. No one's ever done this for me. Maya smiled gently. It's not much, but it's real. He sat at the table, the crooked crown placed on his head by Theo. They sang softly, the tiny candle flickering. When he blew it out, his wish was simple. Let this last. That night, he didn't go home. Not in the way people expected. He fell asleep on the couch. Theo curled between them, the apartment filled with the scent of cake and warmth. Weeks later, the launch of Project Lumen arrived. The event was glittering, held in Riverton's tallest tower. Executives, investors, cameras, every spotlight aimed at Adrian. Maya hesitated when he invited her. Are you sure you want me there? I don't exactly blend in. Adrian met her eyes. That's exactly why I want you there. You remind me why I started this. Her navy dress was simple, nothing extravagant. Her hair fell loose, natural. When she walked through the entrance, heads turned. Adrian offered his arm, guiding her through the crowd. Not as a guest, not as a secret, but as a choice. Reporters shouted questions. One pushed forward, microphone high. Mr. Hale. Who is she? Adrian's voice carried over the noise. I build technology, he said calmly. But the reason I keep building, she's standing right beside me. Flashbulbs erupted, but his eyes stayed on her. Maya felt the weight of stares. But for the first time, she didn't shrink under them, because his words had made her believe she belonged. That night, as city lights flickered beyond the glass walls, Maya laughed quietly. You're famous again, Adrian smiled. Not for what I built, for who I'm building with. The weeks that followed unfolded gently. Pancakes on Saturday mornings, often burnt at the edges. Theo declared them the best in the galaxy. One afternoon, Adrian tied Theo's shoelaces at the park bench. Maya caught herself smiling. The picture felt almost like a memory she'd always longed for. Still, he waited for the right moment. It came on a quiet evening in Willow Park. As the sun slipped low, the air smelled of pine, the sky streaked in orange and violet. Adrian reached into his jacket pocket. A small box, plain, unadorned. Maya's breath caught as he opened it. Inside lay a simple gold band. No diamond. Just one engraving, "Keep choosing." His voice trembled, but his eyes were steady. "I'm not promising perfection," he said. "I'll mess up. But I promise I'll stay. Through the hard, the messy, the unknown." The park was quiet except for Theo's distant laughter. Maya stared at the ring. Her throat ached. "This doesn't mean I turn into some polished woman who fits charity galas. I don't want that," Adrian said softly. "I want burnt pancakes. I want small birthdays. I want this exactly as it is." His laugh was shaky, especially the pancakes. Her eyes glistened. "Then yes." He slipped the ring onto her finger, kissed her hand gently. Theo ran back, cheeks flushed. "Are we going home now?" Maya glanced at Adrian, then back at her son. "Yeah," she whispered. "We are." 3 simple words, but they felt like the beginning of forever. Adrian let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. The wedding was quiet, held in the backyard of Adrian's new house on Riverton's edge. Fairy lights strung through the trees, cupcakes instead of a towering cake. Only 22 guests came, a few co-workers, a neighbor from Maya's building, Theo's favorite daycare teachers. Maya wore a dress she had sewn herself, white cotton trimmed with lace. Adrian skipped the tie. What people noticed most was his mother. Elegant, tears streaming silently. When it was time for vows, Adrian's voice shook. "I've made money. I've built towers of glass and steel. But this is the first time I've built something real." He slid the ring on her hand. She repeated his promise, steady and true. Theo carried the rings, beaming as if he understood everything. Later, music drifted from a single speaker. Guests clapped. Children ran barefoot in the grass. It was simple and perfect. That night, they sat on the rooftop of their home. The city shimmered below, lights like stars scattered across the earth. Above them, the real stars shone faint and steady. Theo was already asleep, curled between them under a fleece blanket patterned with constellations. Maya leaned her head on Adrian's shoulder. The air smelled of summer rain. "You happy?" she asked softly. Adrian exhaled, the weight in his chest finally gone. "I used to think I needed someone who made me sharper. Do more. Be more." He looked at Theo, sleeping peacefully. "But what I really needed was someone who made me want to be the kind of man this boy could call Dad." His voice broke, but the words were whole. Maya reached for his hand. No words, just warmth. Together, they sat in the hush of a life they had chosen. The city stretched wide, the stars above, the lights below. And in that quiet, Adrian knew he was finally home. Thank you for spending this time with us. If this story resonated, please subscribe and turn on the bell so you won't miss the next chapter. A quick like or comment helps more people find these stories. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks again for listening. Wishing you calm, courage, and a warm, gentle night ahead.